brothers, I'm Pasha Ersan, and I'm the physical pillar for Sacred Sons, and we're here at Convergence IV, and I just wanted to drop little gems of knowledge to help you guys out with the systemic contradiction in the fitness industry. And when I mean systemic contradiction, I mean like when you go to fitness expos and there's everything from sliding on the floor to holding torque wrenches and you just knowing what's right for you. And a little piece of advice that I found helped me is use nature as your blueprint. And when humans get creative for the sake of creation, we create things like plastic and cars and petroleum and things that damage the environment. But if we get creative within the confines of nature, then we have the potential to build really, really beautiful things. Just like the ancient Egyptians in northern Africa, how they used anatomy to build their cities and for their technology too. So always go to nature. And before yoga, before we named any system, before animal flow, before anything, we walked, we ran, and we threw. And there's overwhelming research to show that brain development correlates with your gait cycle. That's G-A-I-T. If you want to look this up online on YouTube, G-A-I-T, gait. It's the pattern in which you walk. And all you brothers have the same walking song. That's what makes me the same as you, is you should be walking like me. We can have different personalities, but we should all walk the same, and we can have that to tie us all together. So learning how to walk, run, and throw. Places to research would be functional patterns. I would start there with Naudi Aguilar, Thomas Myers, and Anatomy Trains, and AIMS, Anatomy and Motion. Those are great resources to learn how to walk, run, and throw. So look to nature for your answers. If you have a fitness professional in your life, ask them to tie their system back into nature. Give them 2 minutes to talk about their system and how it correlates to nature, and if they can't do that, then you should question their methods too. I'm not dogmatic about what I do. I'm always searching for the next thing, and right now this seems to be the most progressive type of training system, and it's actually the most primal. That's where we started to move. So walking, running, and throwing. I'm going to give you guys a couple movements to help you understand what walking, running, and throwing is, and we're going to start with this concept of a neutral spine. So I have a stick here. You guys can go to anywhere. You can get a dowel from Home Depot. You can go to your nursery and get some bamboo, get PVC pipe, anything you want, something that's semi-straight, and we're going to try and get our spine neutral. And the reason we're doing that is because of sitting and because of the traumatic experiences in our life, we tend to have what's called an anterior pelvis shift. So we like to put our hips forward, and we like to send our rib cage backwards. So we have kind of this sitting into the front of our hips posture. It's very, very common amongst men to have this posture, and it's not a good, correct posture if you're looking for longevity or if you're looking for function. What this posture does is it puts a lot of strain on your lower back, makes you anchor out of your hip flexors, and in reality, we should be anchoring back into our butt cheeks. And the reason for that is because our glutes directly connect to our feet, and our feet are the most honest part of our body. If I'm walking through the forest and I see a tiger, I freeze, and the only thing I can freeze with is my feet, because that's what I walk with. The tiger sees me, I need to run. The tiger catches me, I need to kick. And that's why the feet are the most important part of the body. The feet are controlled by larger mass muscles. The largest mass muscle is your glutes, hence why it's the power muscle in your body. It's the thing that should be creating power. If your hips are drifting forward, you're going to have what is called a flaccid glute, or a glute that is misfiring during your gait cycle. Glutes are working at all times, but how your glutes are working are very important. If you're doing a bunch of back squats and you're teaching your butt cheeks to fire at the same time, but then you ask them to fire one at a time when you're walking, they get very confused. So a lot of times when men back squat, they end up getting an external rotation of their femurs and an internal rotation, and they end up walking like this. And I'm exaggerating it so you guys can really see the dysfunction. For women, it's quite the inverse. They like to close off their groin and open their hearts and walk like this. Body language won't lie to you. People's words generally will. Watch their feet, watch how they move. If you have scoliosis, metaphorically, you're bent out of shape. If you have a twisted spine, you're twisted in your psyche. If you guys believe that the astral and the physical are connected, then can you get spiritually centered without having your body being centered? So that's one question I want you to think about. Can you be emotionally centered when your body is not centered? That's just something to ponder. For me, I can't. If I can't get my body in a state of neutrality, I can't get emotionally centered. But when I get neutral in my spine, my hips, my feet, and my head, I tend to find a very, very calm place. Most anxiety is caused by a low redox potential. Redox potential is the power output of your mitochondria. Mitochondria are the battery packs inside your cells that create ATP, which is essentially what life is. If you die from anything, from being drowned or car accident, it's a lack of ATP. That stops. Life force energy stops. So we need to increase how your mitochondria function. What they need is water. They need a lot of water. They need a lot of air to function. So if your body is not aligned properly, you become a dehydrated person. A low redox potential. Your battery charge becomes really low, and then you get what's called anxiety. But anxiety is nothing more than a misfiring of your mitochondria and emotions that haven't been dealt with. So if we can get your body posture aligned, then you're going to be able to get a higher mitochondrial output. You're going to be able to get in touch with your organs and your emotions, and anxiety basically dissipates when you do this practice. So I'm going to take my shirt off, and I suggest you guys do the same. And if you're not by a mirror, then you can totally take your own iPhone, set it up somewhere, and you want to get a side profile, a back profile, a front profile, and basically just a whole 360 degree, and then you want to analyze your own spine. There should be natural curves to the spine, but the question is if I ask you to get neutral, can you? Because there's no such thing as bad posture, there's only the one that you're stuck in. So I'm going to go ahead and turn sideways. I'm going to go into a common dysfunction that we see a lot with males, and that's going to be an anterior tilt, where the pelvis is tilting forwards, and then there's going to be an anterior shift, where the pelvis is shifting forwards. Because we're like a lever system, we stack the body, that causes the ribs to shift backwards into a posterior shift, and you're going to see a lot of this when you look at yourself in the mirror. You need to learn how to create leverage, so when one thing moves, all things move. I'm going to try to shove my ass back, and if I don't put my ribs forward, I'm just going to fall. So I'm going to use the pushing back of my hips to drive my chest forwards, and I'm going to see if I can get a nice neutral spine. Tell me, what animal in nature does breathing drills? There isn't one. Tell me, what animal in nature stretches longer than 5 seconds? There isn't one. So you have to ask yourself why you're doing that. The correct breathing for a human is 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, and every breath should be decompressive. It was air that gave us the ability to lift our rib cage off of our hips. So we're going to start just with a quick 2-minute breathing drill. It's going to go 4 seconds in, pause, 4 seconds out. 2 seconds into the belly, 2 seconds into the rib cage. The rib cage is a hot air balloon that starts to pull up, and then you're going to keep it up with every breath, and you're going to grow yourself nice and tall. So it looks something like this. 1, 2, and then exhale, but don't let your ribs go down. Because you're in a compressed state already, I need to slowly inch you up, not to neutral, but past neutral, so that after this little warm-up, you'll be at neutral. So we're just going to keep growing our ribs for the next 2 minutes. So here we go. I'm going to be counting in my head. You guys can go ahead and breathe along. Standing up is great. If you have a mirror, remember, I don't want the anterior tilt or shift. Try to get your spine neutral. And we're going to go ahead and start in 3, 2, 1. My exhale, I retract my navel. Four seconds in, 2 in the belly, 2 into the rib cage. Hold, and then let the belly come in towards the spine on the exhale for 4 seconds. Show you from the side. You can watch the belly go out. The reason we're doing 4 seconds is because anything above that triggers cortisol, 6 seconds even. So even breathing for 6, 7, 8 seconds will trigger cortisol inside of your body. You're a human, you're just walking, you don't focus on your breathing drills. You were taught breathing at birth, that's still innately in you. On average, 4 in, 4 out, and you're just walking along. But when you start to do breathing drills, you start to produce cortisol. Free divers have a protein called S100B, if you want to look that up, that is responsible for short-term memory loss. A lot of Wim Hof practitioners do too. All that stuff is great medicine when it's used as medicine, but if you're just doing breathing drills for the next high, or you're chasing something to mask your pain, we want you to consider that you shouldn't do that. All right, so 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, trying to keep your ribs off of your hips. You're creating traction. Just about everyone that I work with has got an inch of compression. Like, you all can be much, much taller, all right? So if you want to practice getting a neutral spine, you get a stick, you put that stuff on your back, and you're just going to practice tucking the tailbone, arching the back. What's going on is your deep front line is compressed, and that's why your head is going forward, rib is going back, hips are going forward. So I'll put this stick on my back, and I'm trying to see if I can tuck my tailbone back. You're gonna find that that triggers a rounding through your spine, so at the same time that I'm tucking my tailbone, I'm pulling my chest up also. And then if you want to, you can wrap an elastic band around yourself and just walk around the house. Practice planking like this, practice breathing like this. Not only should I breathe from my stomach up to my ribs, but I should breathe from my tailbone up to my neck. Getting taller with this stick. So I recommend training with the stick maybe 5 minutes a day. Like, get the stick, wrap it around yourself, have your partner hold it there, and see if you can get your spine to be neutral. Remember, physical comes first and then astral. So when your spine is neutral, it's almost like you're fighting yourself, and then you're gonna find neutrality, and through that balancing act, that harmony, then harmony isn't like, balancing isn't a stagnant thing. Harmony is like, you know, when you're driving and your hands just kind of going back and forth, that's what harmony is. There's never a state of balance. I think that's a fallacy, but you can find harmony with this neutral position, and you're gonna find that when you're neutral, you can't really think about much because your body's in a state of neutrality, and then you can start to kind of dissolve the problems inside your body with that drill. Okay. So once we have a neutral spine, the next thing to focus on, and any parents out there, any of the fathers who may be watching this, if you have a child and you're wondering what can I do to give them the most bang for their buck, is make sure that they maintain some level of torso rotation and that they play multiple sports. Basketball, baseball, dance, kickboxing. Don't make them fixate on one sport. They should just have as many movement patterns at their disposal, and then also make sure that they know how to rotate their rib cage. Humans are what's called contralateral reciprocators. So contralateral is opposites, left and right. To reciprocate is to give what you get. So if I give you love, you reciprocate it back to me. That's how we work on a biological level. So my left side at the top and my right side at the bottom work together, and those two things help to pull me along. That's what makes me human. When you lose those functions and you can't rotate from your rib cage, you're gonna get rotation from other parts of your body, and that's what's gonna cause the femurs to rotate, that's what's gonna cause the shoulders to rotate, that's even gonna cause your cervical spine to rotate. The rib cage rotates because if you look at the facets of the spine, they've got 30 degrees of rotation. Every vertebra that has a rib attached to it has 30 degrees of rotation. Every vertebra that's in your lumbar has it's that you can't hardly rotate but like 3 to 5 degrees, but you have a lot of flexion and extension. So the lower part of your spine is meant for flexion and extension. The upper part of your spine is meant for rotation, just based on the anatomy of the spine. So a drill that I like to do is I start to get neutral, my feet underneath my hips, I pinch the ground because I don't have separate muscles. I'm one person, I'm Pasha, and Pasha can get engaged completely. I pinch my groin together, I squeeze my glutes, I retract my navel, pull my ribs off of my hips, right palm is up, left palm is down. I'm teaching reciprocation to get my right pec and my left pec and my right lat right here. So to reciprocate means that my left side in the front is going to help the right side on the back to rotate the torso. And then I'm going to throw the arms, and then my torso follows. I'm going to throw the arms, and then the torso follows. And then you can start speeding it up once you feel nice and comfortable. Boom. My hips shouldn't be moving. I should feel a lot going on in my obliques, and I want to see if I can now maintain that 4-second breathing drill. So again, you've got standing neutral for 5 minutes. That's a great drill to practice. And then just learning how to get that motion. That motion is how you walk. It's exaggerated, but it's to give your brain an understanding of what propels you while you walk. When you walk, it goes arm, rib cage, and then the leg. Arms, rib cage, then the leg. Arms, rib cage, leg. Arms, rib cage, leg. When you throw, it's the exact inverse. Legs, rib cage, arms. Legs, rib cage, arms. So throwing and walking are exact inverses of each other. They help each other out. So one thing that you really need to know about walking was that point I made earlier about your glutes firing bilateral. If you did a lot of deadlifts in your life or a lot of squats, you really need to train your glutes how to fire one at a time. So this is a code that you guys can use every day to hydrate your glutes, the power muscle inside your body. So it's gonna go right leg forward, left leg back, in the same position you would be in when you're walking. So it's not gonna be a very deep lunge position. It's gonna be the same as if you're walking. A great thing to consider is this type of squat right here. It's called a hunter squat. This is what you would be in if you were looking for prey, or if you were just chilling by the fire. This would be a much more practical position because you can change directions very fast here as opposed to being down in a squat. You really would only be here if you were going to the bathroom. So this position is a good one to see if you have range of motion in. Having said that, if you don't have that range of motion, you're gonna get into your gait cycle and you're gonna go ahead, bend your knee, send your ass back, make sure that that knee stays over the heel. And then you're gonna start to build reciprocation. I'm gonna go ahead and get my left bicep as engaged as I can and my right tricep as engaged as I can. And I'm gonna use those two muscles to help rotate my torso towards my lead leg. Now it's up to you to look for your butt cheek. I go up, I go down, I go back, I tuck, boom, there it is. Once you feel something burning on the backside of your body, you're now gonna ask the earth for some power and you're gonna pinch your legs together. And what I mean by pinching your leg is this front foot is gonna pull backwards. It's not gonna move, but it's gonna create friction. And this back foot is gonna push like chopsticks. That's the first initiation to your gait cycle. I pinch the ground, boom, and that propels me forward. So we're gonna do a 60-second hold on each leg. Feel free to do this drill every day until you feel real prepared in your butt cheeks. Right leg forward, left leg is back. I hinge. I'm looking for sensation and length in my hamstring. Left bicep, right tricep. I'm gonna go ahead and rotate my chest towards my lead leg, and then I'm gonna look for my glute. Once I find my glute, I create friction. I pinch the ground and I hold. Try to keep your navel retracted. 4 seconds of breathing. Standing up, keeping engagement in your glute. You're gonna throw your arms, keep pinching the ground, and let that bring you to your next step. Throw your arms back, come back down again. Find that glute, pinch the ground, hold for 60 seconds, start to stand up, throw your arms first, pinch the ground to initiate you through. When you finish your gait cycle, now you're pushing backwards with this foot to keep that glute engaged. In the beginning, it starts as a pulling backwards and then ends as a pushing backwards. And that's how you'll end your gait cycle. So try that drill on your glutes each side. Standing neutral for 5 minutes, reciprocation with the rib cage, 5 minutes, standing down low with your glute, maybe 2 to 3 minutes on each side, and that'll get you down and nice and tight up biomechanically. So really work on being neutral, try to go in the opposite direction of the spiral that you're in, and that will help to rehydrate your tissues. Try not to be fixated in one way of thinking or one way of movement. Always go back to the original blueprint of walking, running, and throwing. Throwing is what you use to provide for yourself and your family and to protect your family for 12,000 years or more, depending on what you believe. That reward reflex inside the body is still very much there. You don't need to go hunting, but the pattern of throwing will help for you to provide for your family and your friends. And the way that that happens is because of the thought process that gets associated with a movement. When I go down, I learn how to go up. When I go right, I learn how to go left. When I go through the patterns of throwing, I can associate this whole spiral cyclical way of thinking. If I invest here, I'll get a payoff here. If I communicate with my girlfriend, maybe I can fix my relationship. If I ask for a raise, maybe I don't have to hate my job so much. But if you do linear lifting, then you have a linear way of thinking. That's how it has to be. That's how the body works. So if I'm only linearly moving, then the only option I have is to keep pushing through my job even though I hate it. Keep lying to my girlfriend even though I don't want to. So when you start to learn to move like a human, you're gonna find much more strength to address things in a reciprocal way, in a contralateral way. Yeah, Pasha, Ersan signing off.